Welcome back. With the goal of educating people on the effects of psychedelic plants and drugs, the organization, the Psychedelic Assembly, created a space in Midtown Manhattan that serves as a center for collaboration, education, and connection related to psychedelics. Founder and CEO of Psychedelic Assembly, Kat Lakey, joins me to discuss her journey with this organization. Kat, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you just let everybody know what the Psychedelic Assembly is and basically what it's all about?
Yeah, the Psychedelic Assembly is an organization designed to provide in-person connection for people who are curious about, interested in, or passionate about psychedelic substances. And we do so with our new community center in Midtown Manhattan called the Athenaeum.
Now, as founder, can you just explain what inspired the creation of this organization?
It was largely a personal desire for connection. I was new to New York, feeling kind of lonely, didn't have many friends in the area, and especially no one who was interested in talking about psychedelic substances. So that was a big part of it.
Now, I understand that you also went to Peru, which sounds really exciting. To me, it seems like stuff that you like see in movies. So I'm actually like curious to know, tell me more about that experience and how it led you to where you are now.
Sure. So from 2017 to 2020, I worked at a very small ayahuasca center in the southeastern Peruvian Amazon, studying traditional plant medicine with the Maracay people. And it completely changed my life. It showed me the power of psychedelics working with ayahuasca. I saw a lot of people come down to the center and have very transformative experiences with it. And then ended up having to evacuate the Amazon in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And it led me by a very weird route to New York City in a weird way.
Now, I'm curious to know, like, how, just from that moment to where you are now, like, actually, like, kind of making this passion into a business, into work. Can you just talk about that experience and, what were some of the challenges that went along with that?
Yeah, so I mean, a big takeaway for me from working in the Amazon was that psychedelics have a profound ability to affect people and really help heal them. But the biggest factor that I saw that actually helps people heal is human connection and the ability to have people who can relate to and talk to about their experiences. So when I got to New York, I kind of honed in on that. And initially, this started as a small scale conference on psychedelic medicine in the same building where our library is now at. So we worked throughout the year, launched the conference in last year in September, and then it went really well and just sort of naturally led to the opening of this community center in the same building.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the library?
Yeah, so we just launched in February. We crowdfunded to open the space to buy a bunch of books and build out the center. We're open Monday through Friday, 12 to 7. We provide like sort of a reading room, co-working space in the daytime. And then at nights we do events and on the weekends too, related to psychedelics.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about these events. I understand the organization holds space for conversation, celebration, connection, and more.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just expand on that a little bit more? And, what can people expect, if they are interested in joining this? Like, what are these conversations about? Or, how is this connection formed?
Yeah, I mean, psychedelics touch on so many different aspects of life. So we don't limit our events to any one direction. I mean, we've had comedy shows, we've had lectures, panels, we do a lot of author talks. Some events are just purely social. It's a way for people who are just looking to make friends to meet up and talk about these things. We've done events about AI, events about the medicalization. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up too. So it's all over the place.
And then what would you say the core mission of your organization is? On one hand, is it about, a way I understand that it was important to you to talk to people how they can safely learn about psychedelics? Or is it, human connection and connecting to other people? As you mentioned, that was like part of the reason why you actually kind of wanted to start this in the first place. So what would you say the core mission is?
Yeah, the core mission is both. I mean, I think having a place to connect to people and to learn from other people is critical to education and to harm reduction regarding these things. So that's essentially the mission, providing a space for people to consistently find other people to relate to and to learn about these things.
And I also want to bring up the fact that, like when we spoke, online, you did mention that you wanted people to, like, education was an important part. And I think that whenever we're talking about anything regarding substances, like education is very important because these are things that people may have an interest in and they may go to different areas that may not always be the safest to explore that. Can you just explain, why that was important to you to kind of focus on education?
Yeah, because education is a huge part of harm reduction. I mean, if people don't know how to safely use these things, and inevitably people are going to use psychedelics, so we should provide resources for them to know the best approach, how to stay safe, and yeah, how to get the most out of them.
And often there is a stigma associated with psychedelics. And I understand your organization believes that there's potential for, a change in that. And I think that we've also seen this with, like CBD, now it's completely normalized, but I know for a very long time, there was a stigma associated with that as well. Can you just tell me more about your organization's effort to kind of, I guess, move away from that stigma or destigmatize this?
Yeah, I mean, the strange thing about psychedelics is that they've become stigmatized relatively recently in human history. I mean, these things, they're not new. They're ancient. They've been around for thousands of years, oftentimes, and used traditionally. So it's we like to help destigmatize them, but it's not like bringing about new information. It's like rediscovering lost knowledge from our society and from human culture. So.
And what are some of the efforts that your organization takes to destigmatize it? Would you say like possibly some of the conversation, or do you get people that walk in that are just kind of random and just want to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the biggest piece for us because we're brick and mortar. We're in Midtown of all places, right between the UN and Grand Central Station. We get people walking in off the street who have no idea about psychedelics or they've just peripherally heard about them. So we're able to have really good conversations with people who are just, have no information about this. And so I think that's a big way we're trying to destigmatize these things, is acting as a bridge between the mainstream society and the psychedelic community.
And why do you think there is such a negative just view on psychedelics? I have some of my own ideas, but I want to know like what you think, why there is this stigma and why we view it in, I guess, in mainstream society in a certain way.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stems from the 1960s and how psychedelics were associated with the anti-war movement and the start of the drug war with Richard Nixon. I think we're kind of starting to gravitate away from that as we realize the benefits of these things, especially as treatment for certain forms of mental illness that are not, like treatment-resistant depression and things like that. So.
And earlier I mentioned like how as I was learning more about you, I felt like, I feel like this would be like a movie. Do you think that like media or like, our movies and television may have also contributed to people maybe having this certain idea of like, people who use psychedelics and like what they're about? Do you think that could have possibly had an influence, and is that a negative influence?
Yeah, I think it used to be largely negative. There was a lot of like scare tactics and propaganda back in the 60s and 70s to dissuade people away from these things. Recently, there's been a lot of really positive like coverage in TV and media. I mean, Michael Pollan just came out with a book, How to Change Your Mind. They did a whole series about it on Netflix. So I think as media shifts too, that's going to help the public perception of these things. Yeah.
Now, how could this aid in one's healing process, which I understand is very important as well to your mission and how you connect with others? So how does it help with the healing process?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a ton of research in the last 5-10 years showing that psychedelics have a much better effect on treating, in certain instances, a much stronger effect on treating treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, PTSD, all sorts of mental illness, but also a lot of physical illness too. I mean, they're still doing research and still figuring this out, but it can have an amazing healing effect on people who aren't able to help themselves with antidepressants or traditional means. Yeah.
Now, I also want to talk about, which I know whenever we talk about like any substance, whether that be drugs or alcohol, people bring up age requirements or, how young people are also interested in this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there should be possibly like the more it becomes mainstream, there should be any age limits or any age requirements to experiment with this?
Yeah, I mean, I began experimenting when I was 18. I feel like, like young adulthood is probably a good point to wait. I would definitely not encourage children or teenagers to take these things, although they do in certain traditional societies in the Amazon rainforest. So it's like,
Okay. That actually kind of leads to my next question. I understand that experience. I don't know if that would say was the introduction, but it showed me that like acknowledging other communities and different cultures was important to you,
Yeah.
and you made that a point to like recognize other communities and cultures. Can you talk a little bit more about that experience and why it was important?
Yeah, I mean, it's really critical to me to bring in as many different perspectives into the library space as possible, because there's so many different aspects of this community, and you know, it's a big cliche in the psychedelic space that like we're all one, that we're all connected, but you know, it's true, and bringing a room full of people together who all believe in that from all different walks of life to connect, it has some really cool effects. So.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
I like that I feel like sometimes people can be ignored, or maybe they don't feel like it's a safe space if like they feel like, oh, you know, nobody looks like me here. So I think that's very interesting, that, you know, there was an effort to make sure that other communities felt included. Now, I think what's most important is, how will somebody know if this path is right for them on their healing journey? As I could imagine, it's, you know, everybody heals differently. How could someone know that this would be something that's right for them?
Yeah, I mean, just trust your gut instinct. I mean, if you've exhausted other resources and nothing's been working for you, I mean, maybe start doing research. Libraries are good places to start, but learn about these things. Listen to other people who've had similar experiences, and see if it sounds like something that might benefit you in the long run. Yeah.
Look, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. This was definitely, I think, the first time that I've had a conversation like this, and it was really interesting. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
If you or someone you know would like to learn more about this new social club, please go to their website at www.thepsychedelicassembly.com. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more open right after this.